The first sound he heard was breathing, shallow and broken, buried somewhere beneath the whispering dunes. Marcus Vale slowed his step, boots sinking into the soft ochre sand of Eris 9. The wind scraped across the canyon like dry silk, carrying nothing but heat and silence. Then it came again, a muffled gasp, half swallowed by dust. He froze, scanning the ridgeline. The planet was unkind to stragglers. Storms could swallow a person whole in minutes. He almost turned back toward his rover when a faint glint caught the sunlight, something not rock nor metal but skin, smooth, violet gray, flecked with blood. He approached slowly, heart hammering. The shape resolved into a face. Eyes half closed, alien but heartbreakingly human in their exhaustion. She was buried up to her neck in sand. Her lips were cracked, breath so faint it barely stirred the dust. Marcus dropped to his knees, brushing sand from her cheek. The texture of her skin was strange, soft but cool, like stone that remembered rain. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey, you alive?" One golden eye fluttered open, unfocused. Her throat moved, but no sound came. The wind carried her scent, metallic, sharp, threaded with something floral he couldn't place. He saw the marks carved into her forehead, faint geometric scars that glowed dull red. Symbols. Punishment sigils. "Who did this?" he whispered, more to himself. Her gaze flicked to him, a spark of fear and disbelief. "Human," she rasped, the word raw and alien on her tongue. He blinked. "That's right," he said. "And you're gonna make it, all right? Just hang on." He jammed his hands into the sand around her shoulders, fingers blistering against the heat. The grains clung to his gloves like glass shards, cutting through fabric. Bit by bit, he freed her neck, then her shoulders. She trembled violently as the pressure lifted. "No," she croaked. "Leave." "Not happening." The more he dug, the more he realized how cruelly deep they'd buried her. Up to the chest, the arms pinned beneath layers of compacted earth. Her breathing hitched as the cooler air reached her skin. "Why'd they do this to you?" he muttered. Her voice broke like glass. "Sterile." The word struck him harder than any gunfire. He stared at her face, the mark, the broken resignation there. "They buried you alive because you can't have kids?" She didn't answer. The silence said enough. By the time he freed her torso, his arms burned with exhaustion. Her body was light, too light, ribs showing under skin marked with faint lines of iridescence. When he finally pulled her from the hole, she collapsed into his arms, limp but breathing. The red sigils on her forehead pulsed weakly. "You're safe," he said, though he wasn't sure it was true. The nearest settlement was 50 clicks east. His rover could make it, but only if the storm didn't come early. He carried her carefully toward the ridge. She weighed little, but each step sank him deeper into the sand. "Stay with me," he urged. "Don't sleep." Her eyes half opened. "Why?" "Because you've got someone stubborn enough to save you," he said. "That's rare out here." By the time he reached the rover, the horizon had darkened to copper. Storm coming. He laid her in the passenger seat, sealing the cabin before the first wave of grit hit the windows. The wind howled like a living thing. Marcus wiped sand from his face and turned to her. She looked smaller now, curled under the emergency blanket, shivering uncontrollably. He calibrated the atmosphere, raising oxygen levels. "You understand standard?" he asked. She nodded weakly. "Name?" "Lyra," she whispered. The sound of it felt fragile. "Okay, Lyra. I'm Marcus. You're safe now." Her eyes flicked toward him again, full of disbelief. "Why save me?" Seemed the right thing to do. Humans don't do right. "Guess I'm defective," he said. As the rover powered through the storm, he risked glances at her. Every few minutes, she shuddered as if fighting to stay conscious. Her skin glowed faintly in the low light, veins threaded with soft blue luminescence. He checked the medkit, no antitoxin, no plasma packs compatible with her species. He could only keep her warm and hope her biology did the rest. "Who buried you?" he asked. The Keth, she murmured. My kind. Why? She stared at the ceiling. We are born to renew. Without birth, no worth. So they kill anyone who can't. Not kill. Return to dust. So others grow. He gritted his teeth. That's killing. You wouldn't understand. Try me, he said quietly. She studied him, confusion flickering behind exhaustion. You risk your life, for one who cannot give life. Where I'm from, he said, that's not how we measure worth. Then how? By what we keep alive. Her eyes softened, faint surprise breaking through the numbness. And who keeps you alive, Marcus Vale? He almost laughed. Nobody. Guess that makes me inefficient. No, she said slowly. That makes you alone. The words hit deeper than he expected. He didn't reply. Outside, the storm screamed against the hull, wind dragging long trails of static across the radio. For the first time since he'd crash-landed on this planet weeks ago, he didn't feel the silence pressing in. When the storm eased, he drove toward the ridge where his outpost waited. The sun broke through the dust like a blade, turning the dunes into rivers of light. Lyra slept, her breathing steadier now. He watched her reflection in the glass, the faint glow of her veins fading as her body stabilized. The marks on her forehead no longer burned, but they remained like scars carved into her very identity. He wondered what kind of world taught someone to equate survival with shame. When they reached the outpost, he carried her inside and laid her on the cot near the heater. She stirred as he pulled off his gloves. Warm, she whispered. Good sign, he said. Means you're still stubborn enough to live. She tried to sit up, wincing. Why? Why what? Why do you care? He sighed, rubbing sand from his hair. Because someone should have. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to argue, but the words never came. She looked around the small shelter, steel walls, humming generators, crates marked with Earth insignia. This is your den. Closest thing I've got to one. It feels empty. That's the idea. Humans fear silence. No, he said, adjusting the heater. We just try to fill it before it starts talking back. She frowned slightly. Your people, strange. You'll get used to us, he said. Assuming you stick around. I cannot. My death was chosen. Not anymore. You cannot undo a burial. Watch me, he said. Days passed. Her strength returned slowly, though she refused to eat at first, muttering about unearned life. Marcus coaxed her with persistence and the occasional threat to force-feed her nutrient paste. She hated it, but she ate. He learned fragments of her world, how the Keth believed fertility was sacred, how the barren were marked as hollow and given back to the planet as offerings. It was not cruelty, she insisted. It was balance. Balance doesn't require cruelty, he countered. Sometimes mercy is imbalance. She stared at him a long moment. You speak as if mercy has weight. It does, he said. It's heavy. You carry it the rest of your life. One night she asked, why did you come to Eris 9? Mining contract, he said. Then I found out the company had other plans. Less mining, more weapons testing. I walked out before they buried someone like me too. So you also were marked. Not yet, he said, smiling faintly. Give it time. She studied him with that same unblinking, analytical calm that made him feel transparent. You have lost something, she said finally. A lot of things, he admitted. But not the part that still digs. Her head tilted. Digs. For what's left worth saving. She looked away then, as if the idea hurt. You should not have saved me. Too late, he said. You're my project now. He expected anger. Instead, she laughed, a fragile, uncertain sound, as if she'd forgotten how. Humans, she said softly, shaking her head. You are all wrong. You keep saying that like it's an insult, he said. It is compliment. The heater hummed, filling the silence that followed. She reached out tentatively, touching the fabric of his sleeve. Her fingers lingered, tracing the worn seam. "Your skin burns," she murmured. "That's heat," he said. "You've been half frozen for days." "No," she said quietly. "It burns here." She pressed her palm to her chest. "Inside." He stared at her, not sure whether she meant fever, emotion, or both. "Good," he said finally. "Means you're alive." That night, while she slept, he stood at the window watching the stars burn against the black. Somewhere out there, humanity still argued about ownership and survival while whole species like hers lived and died for reasons that would never make sense to him. He thought of the way her eyes had met his when she said inside, the way it made the endless dark seem just a little less empty. He realized, with a quiet ache, that he hadn't just dug her out of the ground. He'd dug something out of himself, too, the part that still believed in rescue. And for the first time in years, Marcus Vale didn't feel entirely alone in the universe. Morning on Eris 9 came like the ghost of light, thin and pale, filtering through the red haze that hung perpetually over the desert. The outpost walls hummed with recycled air, the smell of rust and dust a permanent perfume. Marcus stirred from his cot to find the space already empty. Lyra was standing near the doorway, bathed in the dim wash of sunrise. Her back was to him, the fine glow of her veins tracing soft blue lines across her shoulders and neck. She had taken his blanket and draped it over her frame, wearing it like a robe. For a moment, he thought she looked almost at peace. Then he noticed the shovel in her hand. "You going somewhere?" he asked. She turned, expression unreadable. "To finish what you interrupted." He sat up fast. "That's not funny." "I am not jesting," she said simply. "My burial was my balance. Without it, others will suffer in my stead." "That's superstition, Lyra." "It is law." He crossed the small space, stopping just short of her. "It's cruelty, wrapped in tradition." Her gaze hardened. "You think your kind invented mercy? You invent machines to kill faster, then name them peacekeepers." "You're not wrong," he said quietly. "But maybe that's why I know what cruelty looks like." For a moment, neither moved. The wind outside howled through the vents, carrying the scent of ozone. Slowly, she lowered the shovel. "Your defiance is strange," she murmured. "So is your guilt," he replied. She studied him for a long moment, the tension in her shoulders fading. "If I stay," she said, "they will come. The mark calls to them. Then we hide the mark." He grabbed a medic pad from the shelf and pressed it against her forehead. The biogel shimmered silver, sealing the carved lines beneath a thin layer of skin. "There," he said. "Gone." She touched the spot lightly, eyes wide. "You erase law." "No," he said. "I erased permission to hurt you." She looked at him then, not as the desperate, half-buried exile he had found, but as something closer to equal. "You are either very brave," she said softly, "or very foolish." "Both," he said. "That's the human condition." In the days that followed, they built something that wasn't quite trust but wasn't distance either. Lyra helped him repair the filtration units, her delicate hands deft with alien tools. She hummed as she worked, low and rhythmic, a sound that seemed to sync with the hum of the machines themselves. "It listens," she told him when she caught him staring. "Everything listens, if you speak with respect." "Even the dirt?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Especially the dirt." He wasn't sure if she was teasing. When he stepped outside to check the solar collectors, he found her kneeling in the sand, palms pressed to the ground. "You talking to the planet?" "Apologizing," she said. "It remembers being asked to kill me." He shook his head. "You're something else." "You say that like you mean more than words," she replied, and he didn't deny it. That night, she dreamed of fire. He woke to her voice, soft but strained, speaking in her own language. The words were melodic but edged with panic. She lay twisted in her cot, breath quick and shallow. He reached for her shoulder, but before he could speak, her hand shot out and gripped his wrist with surprising strength. Lyra, hey, it's me, he said. Her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly gold in the dim light. For a second she didn't seem to recognize him. Then her grip loosened. The sand, she whispered. It remembers my breath. You're safe, he said gently. It's over. Nothing ends, she murmured. Only changes shape. He stayed beside her until the tremors stopped. She didn't sleep again that night, and neither did he. By morning, the outpost sensors screamed to life. A contact blip, approaching fast from the east. Marcus cursed under his breath and checked the feed. A small skiff, atmospheric entry, no ID codes. Could be a SCOV team, he said. Could be worse. Keth? She asked. He nodded grimly. If they're tracking your burial mark, we're out of time. Then I must go. Not a chance. He grabbed his pack and started sealing the rover. We head for the canyons. Harder to scan there. She hesitated. If they find you with me, then they'll learn what happens when you bury the wrong person, he said. She opened her mouth to protest but stopped. There was something in his tone, a quiet, dangerous certainty that even she, a species raised on ceremony and consequence, recognized as sacred. They left the outpost behind, its solar panels gleaming like bones in the light. The rover cut through the dunes, scattering clouds of rust-red sand. Behind them, a dark speck on the horizon grew larger, the skiff, closing fast. You sure this canyon's deep enough? Marcus muttered. Yes, Lyra said. It was once an ocean. Good. Let's hope it forgot how to drown people. She glanced at him, a flicker of dry humor in her eyes. You joke at death. It's a coping mechanism. Then you cope often. You have no idea. The scanner beeped again, closer now. He pushed the throttle, the rover jolting over uneven ground. Hold on, he said. I'd rather not crash twice on the same planet. They reached the edge of the canyon as the skiff entered visual range. It hovered low, its hull sleek and organic, like a living creature forged from glass and bone. That's Keth design, he asked. Yes, she whispered. It carries a chanter. A what now? One who speaks for the planet. Their word is final. So, judge, jury, and executioner. And burial. She looked at him, eyes bright with fear. Marcus, if they see me alive, they will bury both of us. He took a deep breath. Then we don't let them see us alive. He killed the engine, guiding the rover into the canyon's shadow. The walls rose around them, cool and silent. The skiff passed overhead, scanning beams slicing through dust. They held still, breaths shallow. The hum of the ship vibrated in his teeth, then faded slowly into distance. When the sound was gone, Lyra sagged in relief. They will return, she said softly. They always do. Then we keep running, he said. Or we fight. She stared at him, surprised. Fight the Keth? Alone. You say that like it's impossible. It is impossible. Yeah, he said. But humans make a habit of doing impossible things. Her lips parted in disbelief, then curved into something almost like admiration. You would defy gods for one marked as nothing. I'd defy worse for someone who didn't deserve it. The silence that followed felt heavy with more than gratitude. She looked away first, but her voice was soft when she said, Perhaps your kind's madness is its mercy. They made camp that night beneath a stone overhang, the canyon glowing faintly with trapped starlight. Marcus fixed a small fire in a thermal pit, its blue flame casting ripples across her skin. You ever think of going back? He asked. Back where? To your people. I cannot, she said. I am hollow. You're alive. Alive is not the same as whole. It's a start. She studied him for a long time, then reached out and touched his hand. You speak as if life is something you build. Maybe it is, he said. One brick at a time. And what will you build from this? Depends if you stay, he said quietly. She didn't answer, but her fingers didn't move away. The next morning, they found the canyon floor littered with glowing threads of crystal, remnants of ancient water veins exposed by erosion. Lyra knelt, running her fingers over them. This is what we were meant to protect, she said. Not laws, not purity. This. Then maybe it's time someone else tried, he said. She looked up at him, her eyes catching the morning light. You sound like a priest. Trust me, he said with a faint smile. I'm not that holy. She laughed, a real unguarded laugh this time, and for a fleeting moment the desert felt like a world worth saving. But far above them, unseen, the Keth skiff circled back. The burial mark on her forehead, though hidden, still pulsed faintly in the planet's resonance. The ground trembled with distant vibration. Lyra's smile faded as she felt it. They're listening, she whispered. They never stopped. Marcus looked toward the horizon, jaw tightening. Then it's time they heard something new. The first tremor rolled through the canyon like a breath drawn by something ancient. Dust drifted from the overhangs, spiraling down in slow motion as the sound deepened, a pulse that came not from above, but from within the stone itself. Marcus felt it in his ribs, a low vibration that made his teeth ache. Lyra went still, her head tilted as if listening to something only she could hear. They've awakened the Earth Song, she whispered. That doesn't sound good, he said, glancing at the scanner. The display glitched with concentric waves, each one stronger than the last. They're triangulating, she said. The burial mark resonates with the soil. They can find me through the dust. Then we need to move, he said, starting toward the rover. No, she said, voice breaking. If we move, the pulse follows. They'll burn everything in its path. He turned back to her, disbelief shadowing his expression. So what? Stand here and let them take you. If I face them, she said, you might live. Not good enough, he snapped. I didn't drag you out of the ground just to watch you walk back into it. She met his gaze, gold irises flaring faintly in the gloom. You don't understand our rights, Marcus. The planet itself remembers the unburied. If I do not yield, it will take all in reach. Then we make it forget. How? You said everything listens, right? He knelt, pressing his palm against the canyon floor. The vibration thrummed through him like a heartbeat. Then maybe it'll listen to me. You are not of this world, she said. Neither are they, he replied. For a long moment she watched him, caught between horror and awe. Then she knelt beside him, laying her hand atop his. Your pulse, she said softly. It is steady. Too stubborn to quit. The earth may not like that. It'll have to adapt. Together they closed their eyes, their hands resting on the trembling stone. The air grew heavy, the hum deepening until it was more felt than heard. Somewhere far beneath, the resonance shifted, an echo like a heartbeat missing a step. What do you hear? He whispered. Regret, she said. It does not want to kill. It wants permission to stop. Then tell it to. It won't hear me. Then I will. He leaned forward, speaking to the silence the way he might to a dying comrade. Calm, direct, unwilling to let go. You don't have to follow their orders anymore, he said. No one does. For a heartbeat, nothing changed. Then the pulse slowed. The ground exhaled a sigh that wasn't wind but memory, ancient, sorrowful. The scanner reading steadied, the waves flattening into stillness. Lyra gasped, eyes wide. It listened, she whispered. You commanded it. No, he said, breathless. I asked nicely. You changed the song. Maybe it needed a new tune. The canyon around them fell silent, the oppressive hum replaced by the faint drip of melting crystals. Lyra's hand still rested on his. No human has ever touched the memory layer, she said softly. Then you need better stories about us, he replied. We're full of surprises. Her fingers tightened around his. Perhaps your kind's defiance is its grace. We prefer reckless optimism, he said. Their brief quiet was shattered by the roar of engines. The Keth skiff descended into the canyon, thrusters kicking up a storm of red dust. Guess they didn't like my remix, Marcus muttered. We must hide, Lyra said. No time, he replied. Soldiers in segmented armor disembarked, moving with insect precision. Their eyes glowed faintly beneath translucent masks, their voices blending in a low harmonic chant that made the air vibrate. What are they saying? He asked. They are asking the planet to take me, she said. Yeah, well, they'll have to get through me first. He leveled his rifle. No killing, she warned. I didn't plan on dying polite, he said. The first soldier raised a staff tipped with crystal, aiming it like a weapon. Energy crackled, pure sound shaped into force. Marcus dove, rolling behind a boulder as the blast shattered stone. Sound cannons, he muttered. That's new. He fired a pulse round, the bolt hitting one soldier square in the chest. The armor absorbed it, rippling like liquid. They feed on resonance, Lyra said. Then I'll give them indigestion. He switched to concussive rounds, firing into the ground near their feet. The shockwave disrupted the chanting for a moment. Lyra seized the chance, stepping forward with her hands raised. Enough! She shouted in her native tongue. The soldiers froze, their formation wavering. I am not your enemy, she called. The earth refused your command because it remembers mercy. One of the soldiers hesitated, lowering his staff. Then a voice, deeper and colder than the rest, answered from the skiff. A figure emerged, taller, draped in dark ceremonial robes. His mask was carved with runes that pulsed red. You are hollow, he said, his tone resonating in both languages at once. Your defiance insults the balance. Balance? Marcus shouted. You call this balance? You buried her alive. The chanter ignored him, addressing Lyra. The mark upon your brow binds you. The human's interference is corruption. The ground demands your silence. Then it demands too much, she said. He raised a hand, and the air itself began to hum again. The canyon floor trembled. Marcus grabbed her wrist. Lyra, we need to go. If I run, he will bury you instead, she said. Not planning on giving him the chance. He glanced at the rover. Too far. The chanter's voice rose, the hum becoming pain, a vibration that clawed at bone and memory. Lyra screamed, collapsing to her knees. Marcus dropped beside her, wrapping his arms around her shoulders. Hey, stay with me. He's binding me, she gasped. Through the mark. Then we erase it again. He tore open his medkit, slapping a fresh patch on her forehead. The gel flared bright, overloading the resonance. The chanter staggered back, clutching his head as the feedback looped. The soldiers faltered, their chant breaking. That's right, Marcus said through gritted teeth. Your rules don't work on me. The chanter straightened, his voice rising to a roar. You cannot unmake the balance. Watch me, Marcus said. He fired at the canyon wall above the skiff. The explosion triggered a cascade, rocks, dust, and crystal shards raining down. The skiff tilted, engines whining. Lyra grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the rover. They ran as the canyon collapsed behind them. The air filled with the sound of shattering stone and the hiss of dying engines. When they finally reached the ridge, both were gasping. The canyon below was half buried now, glowing faintly with the trapped light of the skiff's shattered core. Did we kill them? He asked. No, she said. The earth took them back. He stared at her, then laughed breathlessly. Remind me not to piss you off. They camped that night beneath the open stars. The air was still, the desert strangely peaceful after the chaos. Lyra sat beside the small fire, tracing symbols in the sand. You defied a chanter, she said quietly. That's probably not good for my resume, he said. You changed our law, she murmured. You made it bleed. Good, he said. Maybe it'll grow something better. She looked up, her eyes reflecting the firelight. You think kindness can rewrite a world? It's rewritten worse, he said. Ask history. Your history ends in fire, she said. Yeah, he replied softly. But it always starts in hope. For a while, neither spoke. The fire crackled between them, a fragile line of warmth in the endless cold. Lyra reached toward the flame, her fingers hovering just above it. My people fear this, she said. They believe fire devours what it touches. It gives back too, he said. Heat, light, life, and pain. Sometimes that's part of the deal. She turned her hand, watching the glow reflect in her skin. Perhaps I am learning your madness, she said. It's contagious, he said with a smile. She looked at him for a long time, then leaned forward slightly. Marcus, she said softly, if the balance hunts me still, would you bury me again? He stared, the question hitting like a blade. No, he said. I'd dig up the world instead. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of shared breath, of things neither of them dared name. The desert wind carried faint notes of song from somewhere far off, like the planet itself humming approval. Marcus reached out, brushing a strand of violet hair from her cheek. You're not hollow, he said. You never were. Her eyes shone wetly. Then what am I? Alive, he said. And that's enough. For the first time since he'd met her, she didn't argue. She just leaned into him, resting her forehead against his chest. The firelight flickered over them, painting their shadows long against the sand. Above, the stars of Eris, 9 burned cold and eternal, watching 2 tiny sparks of defiance keep each other warm. Dawn broke red across the desert, casting a soft light over the canyon's fractured rim. Marcus woke to silence, the kind that came after something irreversible. The fire had long since died, leaving only a trail of ash spiraling in the cold air. Lyra sat a few paces away, her silhouette etched against the rising sun. She looked as if carved from the planet itself, still, regal, almost spectral. For a moment, he wondered if she'd slept at all. You're up early, he said quietly. She didn't turn. The earth is mourning, she murmured. It hums like a wound. You mean from the collapse? No, she said softly. From mercy. It doesn't know what to do with it. Her words lingered between them, fragile as glass. He joined her, sitting in the sand. We'll teach it, he said. She turned her head then, studying him in profile. You speak as if mercy can be taught, she said. Everything can be, given enough stubbornness. And you have much of that. It's my only redeeming quality. Her lips twitched, almost a smile. But then her gaze drifted toward the horizon, where dark shapes cut across the light. Ships. Multiple, descending in formation. They're back, she said quietly. Marcus followed her stare. Fleet size. Too many, she murmured. The council comes to reclaim its balance. Then they're about to learn balance bites back. He stood, checking his rifle. We can't outrun that many. We can't fight them either. Then we find another way. He looked toward the canyon where the buried skiff still glowed faintly. We use what's left. The descent was treacherous. The air smelled of dust and metal, the canyon walls humming faintly with residual energy from the chanter's fall. The skiff's hull jutted from the debris like a broken rib, light flickering weakly through its cracks. Lyra approached cautiously, placing her palm on the metal. It responded instantly, pulsing faintly beneath her touch. It remembers me, she said. Can it fly? Marcus asked. Not in the way you mean, she said. But its heart still beats. Then maybe it can scream loud enough to make them think twice. You would weaponize song? If it keeps us alive. She tilted her head, considering, then nodded. You will need to speak when I tell you to. You're the one with the magic voice. No, she said, looking at him. This time, it must be human. They worked in silence. Lyra sang low tones, coaxing dormant systems awake. Marcus rerouted power through his rover's battery cells, fingers numb with static. When the hull lights flickered to life, the air shimmered with heat and sound, blending into something almost divine. "It's alive," he murmured. "It remembers mercy," she corrected. The ground trembled, a deep resonance spreading outward. The ships above slowed, caught in the anomaly. "They're listening," Lyra said. "Now, Marcus." He stepped forward, his voice shaking only slightly. "To the Keth Council," he began. "You buried someone who deserved to live. You called her hollow, but it's your law that's empty. You made death sacred and forgot that life already was." Lyra's voice rose beside his, harmonizing until the air itself vibrated with their defiance. Above them, the lead ship's engines faltered. The fleet wavered, formation breaking. A voice thundered from the comms, translated through the skiff's ancient core. "Human," it said, distorted but clear. "You meddle in echoes beyond your right." "Maybe," Marcus replied. "But I've seen what your balance costs. And I'm not interested in a universe that worships extinction." "You have no claim here." "She's my claim," he said. "Her life, her choice, her right to exist without your permission." Silence followed, an entire species hesitating for the first time. Lyra reached for his hand, her grip trembling. "They don't understand," she whispered. "Then we make them." The sky burned brighter as the fleet descended. The ground quaked, the skiff's hull fracturing under the strain. "It's too much," she said. "They'll crush us. Not if the planet wakes up first." He pressed his hand against the metal beside hers. "Come on, old friend," he murmured. "You wanted mercy? Here's your chance to show them what it looks like." The light around them intensified, bleeding into the sand. The hum became a roar, and suddenly, the canyon itself was alive. Crystalline veins glowed in every direction, spreading across the desert in brilliant lines of gold and blue. The earth sang, a sound too vast for words, too human for gods. The fleet hesitated mid-descent, their instruments overwhelmed by the surge. Lyra gasped, her eyes wide. "It hears you. It hears us," he said. The light enveloped them, wrapping around her like a halo. "What's it doing?" he shouted over the noise. "Remembering," she whispered. "It remembers the first warmth, the promise between creation and mercy." The song grew louder, deafening, then released all at once in a wave that rippled through the sky. The ships faltered, engines stuttering, then rose sharply, retreating like frightened birds. Silence crashed down in their wake, broken only by their ragged breathing. Marcus lowered his hands slowly. "Did we just talk an entire armada into retreat?" "No," she said, her voice shaking. "You reminded the universe it could listen." The glow faded. The skiff's core dimmed to embers. Marcus sank to his knees, exhaustion catching up. Lyra knelt beside him, placing her hand over his. "You have changed the song forever," she said. "You made the ground remember kindness." He looked at her, smiling weakly. "Guess we're both terrible at following rules." She brushed a thumb across his cheek, leaving a faint streak of luminous dust. "Your defiance," she said softly, "is beautiful. You say that like it surprises you. It humbles me." He laughed, then winced. "Haven't heard that word in a while." The storm came without warning, a wall of wind and sand, roaring down the canyon like a living beast. "Shelter!" he shouted. They ran for a crevice in the rock, diving inside as the storm swallowed the world. 4 hours, the desert raged outside, turning day into night. They sat close in the narrow space, the air thick with dust. "You think the fleet will come back?" he asked. "Not soon," she said. "They will need time to make sense of what they felt." And what did they feel? Fear, wonder, perhaps even shame. "Good," he said. "They could use all three." When the storm finally broke, the desert had changed. Where sand once stretched endless, shallow pools of molten glass shimmered in the light. The air hummed softly, resonant with life. "The planet is healing," she said. "From us. Because of us." She turned to him, her expression unreadable. "You should leave soon." "Why?" "The Keth will rewrite their laws around what happened. They will come looking for the anomaly, the human who made their gods listen. Then I'll tell them I'm terrible with theology." "You joke, but they will not." "Let them try," he said. "I'm not leaving you. You may not have a choice." Her voice softened. "The vow between us is heavy. It will draw things neither of us are ready for." He frowned. "What vow?" "When you dug me from the earth, you made one without words. You offered life in exchange for none. That promise binds through time. You're saying this connection is older than both our kinds." She met his gaze. "We share one breath now, one pulse. When you spoke to the ground, it heard us as one." He let out a shaky laugh. "Guess I'm married to a planet now." She didn't smile. "You laugh, but such bonds consume." He reached out, tilting her chin up gently. "Then we'll learn how to live with it." Her eyes softened, shimmering like gold and dusk. "You would bear eternity?" "If it means not burying you again," he said. The next days blurred into quiet rebuilding. They scavenged what they could from the wreck, crafting new shelters in the reborn desert. Lyra taught him how to listen, the way the sand whispered when water flowed beneath it, the way the crystals hummed before sunrise. He taught her how to fix engines and boil coffee. Their worlds met in small, practical ways that felt larger than miracles. Sometimes she would hum softly while he worked, and the machines would answer with steady rhythm. "See," he'd tell her. "Even tech likes a good song." "Or perhaps it likes a good man," she'd reply, eyes gleaming with humor. "Nah," he'd say. "Those are harder to find." But one night, he woke to find her standing outside, hair flowing in the warm wind, her skin glowing faintly. "Lyra." She turned, her eyes bright with sorrow and resolve. "It's calling me," she said. "The balance." "No," she said softly. "The memory we made. It spreads beyond this place. If I stay, the song will break. Then I'll go with you." "You can't," she said. "You're still human. The song would unmake you." "So that's it?" he asked quietly. "I save you, and you disappear?" She stepped closer, pressing her palm to his chest. "You did more than save me. You changed what my people believe is possible." Her voice trembled. "You made me believe it too." "That's not enough," he said. "It's everything," she whispered. Before he could speak again, she kissed him, a touch light as breath, fierce as starlight. When she pulled away, the air shimmered around her, particles of light rising like dust in reverse. "Lyra, you will see me again," she said. "Every time mercy feels impossible." And then she was gone, dissolving into the wind. The desert fell silent, the warmth fading slowly from the air. Marcus stood there for a long time, watching the horizon where she had vanished. The dawn came again, and with it, the faint hum of the planet breathing. Somewhere deep within the ground, the song of their vow continued, soft, steady, unbroken. The days after her departure passed in silence that refused to end. Marcus had survived loneliness before, but never like this, never with the ghost of someone who had turned solitude into something sacred. The desert had changed since she'd gone. The dunes no longer drifted endlessly but anchored themselves around streams of melted crystal, solidifying into new riverbeds. The planet's pulse had steadied, softer now, no longer angry. He spent his mornings repairing the outpost, his evenings listening to the faint hum beneath the sand, a melody that lived halfway between memory and heartbeat. Every night he caught himself whispering her name into the wind, as if the air still owed him an echo. It never answered, but it never ignored him, either. He documented everything. It gave the silence a shape. His journal filled with sketches of crystalline formations, temperature readings, and notes about the shift in electromagnetic resonance. But between every paragraph of data, his handwriting faltered into fragments. Her voice carried in waves. Her laughter softened the horizon. The world listens now because she taught it to. He wasn't writing a report anymore. He was building a record for whoever came next. Proof that mercy had weight and warmth could be stronger than law. When the supply ship finally broke orbit weeks later, its lights cutting through the thin atmosphere like new stars, he almost didn't signal it. But he had promises to keep, even if she was no longer there to remind him why. The ship touched down at dusk, kicking up plumes of luminous dust. The crew disembarked cautiously, scanning the environment. One of them, a woman with an Earth insignia, gasped at the sight of the reborn valley. "By the core," she whispered. This planet was dead in the records. "Not anymore," Marcus said from the ridge, voice hoarse from disuse. They turned, startled. "Lieutenant Vale," the officer said. "You were declared missing." "Guess I got found," he said. She stared at him, then at the landscape. "What happened here?" He hesitated, looking over the glowing dunes. "We changed the rules." "We." "Just write it down as a joint effort," he said, smiling faintly. She frowned, unsure whether to laugh or salute. "Command will want answers." "They always do," he said quietly. "Tell them to bring questions instead." They examined the canyon where the skiff had fallen. The Keth ships had long since vanished, but their impression remained, a hollow carved into the ground, filled now with shimmering pools of condensed light. The scientists murmured theories, speculating about atmospheric anomalies and self-replicating crystal ecosystems. None of them mentioned her. None of them could. Marcus stood apart, watching as they documented everything that was once sacred. He should have been angry, but instead he felt a strange calm. The world didn't need worship anymore. It was alive, curious, noisy, the way living things should be. When one of the researchers approached him with a question about residual resonance frequencies, he just smiled and said, "Listen long enough. You'll hear her yourself." That night, the team celebrated the discovery with lights and laughter that felt too loud. Marcus sat by the edge of the canyon, nursing a tin cup of water gone lukewarm. The stars reflected in the pools below, dancing in the ripples made by the wind. "You'd hate this noise," he muttered, half smiling. "But you'd like that they're not afraid anymore." A faint breeze stirred the dust at his feet, warm and fragrant. It brushed against his cheek like breath. "Yeah," he whispered. "I miss you too." For a heartbeat, the pools shimmered gold. Then the light faded, leaving only reflection. Months turned to years. The research colony grew, bringing new habitats and families. Eris, 9 was renamed Vathra, meaning renewal, in a mix of Terran and Keth. No one remembered who suggested it. They built schools near the canyon, teaching the story of the planet's awakening as science, not myth. But on quiet nights, the colonists swore they could hear faint singing from the desert, something low, harmonic, full of longing. When they asked Marcus, now gray-haired and half-legend himself, he'd smile and say, "That's just the planet remembering how to breathe." He never told them about the warmth that still hummed beneath his skin when he touched the sand, or how the machines occasionally powered themselves for no reason other than kindness. He became something of a relic, a man who spoke softly to soil, who repaired broken drones with patience and prayer. The younger colonists called him the listener. He didn't correct them. One afternoon, while cataloging crystal samples, he felt the vibration shift beneath him, a pulse, familiar and new. It wasn't the steady hum of the world. It was faster, lighter. He froze, pressing his palm to the ground. The rhythm matched a heartbeat he hadn't felt in years. "Lyra," he whispered. The sand warmed beneath his touch. The glow spread outward, faint but undeniable. A voice, not sound, but resonance, filled the air around him. "I told you mercy never ends." He closed his eyes, laughing softly through tears. "You're late," he murmured. "I am eternal," she replied, amusement threaded through light. That night, he dreamed of the canyon reborn into an ocean. She stood at its edge, no longer spectral but radiant, her feet touching the water without sinking. The song reached the stars, she said. My people listen now. They no longer bury the barren. They build gardens for them instead. He smiled in the dream, the ache in his chest easing. You changed a civilization, he said. We did, she corrected. Your warmth lit the first spark. I only carried it forward. And now I return what was given. She placed her hand over his heart. You made me remember life. I will make you remember forever. He felt her warmth flood through him, not burning but blooming. When he woke, his pulse beat in perfect rhythm with the desert again. As the years faded into decades, Vathra became a sanctuary. Humans and Keth settled together, learning to share rituals instead of graves. They planted seeds in sand that once devoured them, and the world responded, verdant where it had been dead, merciful where it had been cruel. Marcus lived long past the age medicine could explain, his body slowed by something unseen. You're a medical anomaly, one doctor told him. No, he said, smiling. I'm a promise kept. On the anniversary of the planet's renewal, he walked alone to the old canyon. The air was soft, the pools still singing faintly. He knelt by the edge and whispered, I kept building like you asked. The wind stirred, carrying his words away. And I kept listening. When he didn't return to camp the next morning, they found him sitting by the water, peaceful, his eyes open toward the horizon. No pulse, no struggle, just quiet completion. The desert bloomed that day. Flowers of crystal and fire burst from the sand, stretching for miles. The colonists called it the Day of Mercy. None of their censors could explain it, but they didn't need to. The legend said the world had finally learned to love its own song.